The Agenda is powered by DART, Delaware's transit service, moving forward.
Hi, I'm Kerwin Gaines. Welcome to The Agenda. We've promised you this season that we're coming back with stronger guests and talking about more things that affect you right here on The Agenda. And today there is no difference in that. We're going to be talking about House Bill 350. It's a very sensitive topic right now in Dover, basically all throughout the state. We have Republican Representative Mike Smith on the show today as a second-time guest here on The Agenda. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Kerwin. Appreciate you having me back.
Yes, absolutely. We know that you are very passionate about this bill and where it stands and the problems with it. And we would love to get your insight so you can let your constituents know that they are on the agenda and on your mind in regards to this legislation. Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. I think this is definitely one of those bills. I mean, we do a lot of bills, but this is definitely one of those bills that I think has kind of infiltrated hospital employees and past retirees, but not necessarily, the broader public. And I think it's one of those things that will set precedent for our state that everybody needs to better understand.
Yeah. So let's kind of go through it real quick. The synopsis, if you will, sir, for our viewers that have not or may not know exactly what House Bill 350 is. It's an act that creates the Diamond State Hospital Cost Review Board, which will be responsible for the review and the approval of annual hospital budgets, beginning with the budgets for calendar year of 2026. Hospital budgets established under this process are required to adhere to as closely to the spending benchmark as reasonable given the hospital's financial positions and associated economic factors. It's to promote efficient and economic hospital operations and maintain the hospital's ability to meet financial obligations. As a temporary measure until the board begins operations, hospitals are required to charge no more than 250% of Medicare costs to any payer for hospital services in the calendar year of 2025. Right. So to me, at my first glance at this a month or so ago was, hey, this looks like hospital oversight from the state. This appears at first glance to be hospital oversight. And then I think, well, why is it that we have this oversight? Why was this bill created? What was the problem? What was this stimulus, so to speak, that caused this?
Yeah, no, I think those are all fair questions. I think you hit the nail on the head. It essentially is a politically appointed government oversight board to our nonprofit private hospitals. We do not have government hospitals. We have private nonprofit hospitals. And essentially what this does is allows the governor and then through the Senate and the General Assembly to be able to set these people. And, what's interesting in the original bill here is that, they have to have a medical background, which could mean many things. And it also means that there needs to be no conflict of interest. And I don't know about you, Kerwin, but that's pretty hard to do here in the good old state of Delaware.
Was it 4 degrees of separation here in Delaware?
Maybe one, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I want to be candid, if I could.
Please,
Representative Smith. It seems as though and this is Kerwin's world. So I think that ChristianaCare, we're fortunate enough to say, hey, we only have 1 million people in our state, but that can also be detrimental, right? And I think to our detriment is our hospital's system doesn't really have true competition. And what I found from myself, who goes to Philadelphia for medical care, is that when you are surrounded by hospital systems, they compete with one another in regards to service, cost, and et cetera. Just the basic foundations of capitalism in this country. But at the same time, in the state of Delaware, when we don't have that, except maybe 1 or 2 health systems here, it can be detrimental to the end user. And by that, I mean the overall patient and customer. And I think, again, this is my world, that Christiana Cares of Delaware, the small health system that we have, may not have been or is not adhering to a customer first attitude in regards to care. And it's gotten to a point where it requires government oversight.
So a couple things there, and I don't disagree with anything you just said. I actually think this is a Christiana Care bill, if you really just wanted to be blunt and transparent about it. That's my thoughts. I'm not the bill sponsor, so I can't speak to that. But I think it's very convoluted and goes to a lot of factors, right? So this bill speaks to the healthcare benchmark. The unfortunate part about that is the hospital is only one piece of that. Pharmacy, it doesn't deal with long-term care. It doesn't deal with just ER specific. It doesn't deal with any of the other factors that go in to our healthcare benchmark. So it is kind of an unfair assessment to one group over the collective whole of health. I would agree with you, and I think competition, I think Christiana Care would say well, we have competition, nobody just really understands it. I would agree that I think another major hospital system coming in would be a great idea. I think another major insurer coming into the state could be a good thing. Those are automatically going to push competition. But if you ultimately look at it and how the bill is being proposed, it's saying that it's going to support the cost. But if you really think about it deeply and think about what the government oversight board does, it's going to increase cost. So if you increase a bureaucracy, and again, all these people would be paid for by us, the taxpayer, not by Christiana Care. We're adding to that. And then it's creating a board of politically appointed people. I have a real problem with that. How do you know you don't get political connections in terms of campaign donations or kickbacks or anything like that? I have a big problem with that, especially when some of us have been pushing an inspector general's office where you could have oversight of all government entities.
Right.
Leading to that, I would even question if the auditor's office has the ability to do that. If you recall, an employee and it hasn't even really truly been too much on the news, but an employee got caught stealing $180,000 from the Department of Labor. And when you look at the audit and the auditor knowing that for a year, it didn't even show up in the audit. But what showed up in the audit is the state is inauditable because of how obscure and old our systems and accounting are.
Yeah.
And so that would tell me, no, I don't think we do need government oversight. I think we need more government, or I think we need more competition. I think we should always have oversight. But when you're creating a politically appointed board on one sector, where does that stop? Nonprofits that get grant and aid through our state, they don't have to show their budgets. I think they should. I have a bill that says we should create a grant and aid committee with a rubric. So I think they should, don't get me wrong. But, higher education doesn't do it. Fire departments, all these other groups don't have to do it. Why are we doing it for one sector? If you're going to do it and be transparent. But to do it to say you're going to save on healthcare costs, I believe that it's completely disingenuous. All it's going to do is drive up costs, and it's actually going to limit what we're able to do. Because a lot of as consumers, a lot of what we're able to do, you mentioned you go to Philadelphia, a lot of people need to be better educated that they don't need to go to the ER to get service of these things. You can go to urgent care and other things. And I'm going to tell you transparently, I spent a ton of time in the ER for 9 years because I was a caregiver for my grandmother. So I do understand this pretty intimately. And to me, the line in the sand is you're creating a politically appointed group of people over top of a hospital of experts. And I don't know that I trust government experts over medical experts, especially you hear all the jargon from the other side is, everything is healthcare. We need to trust healthcare professionals. It's between a doctor and a patient. Well, where did that go with this bill?
Yeah. So I think to my point, which stuck out in the synopsis is this, they are capping expenses or overall, what did they call it here? Charges no more than 250% above Medicare. And when you were listing out the other agencies that do not have the level of oversight that this current bill is suggesting for our hospital system here in Delaware, I can't think of any other agency that has a $250,000, 250%, margin on overall cost. I understand that the Medicare, Medicaid system in regards to vendors, which our hospitals are, in regards to billing actual customers, there's a game that goes on there. But when I'm seeing 250% as the cap, I'm saying, whoa, why is this the reason why healthcare in the United States is so expensive? And has it gotten to that point where the government is saying, even though, and Representative Smith, I'm going to be honest with you, the board selection in regards to non-healthcare professionals and all that, I agree with you. We have to do some changes there, I would think, on a legislative side in regards to who can sit on this and conflicts of interest. But at the same time, I'm also seeing 250% as the cap. Then we do need to really take a look at this. And speaking from a constituent and also as a Delawarean that pays into a health insurance program, the cost of health, no surprise to you, is astronomical, right? If you have the ability to travel to other countries, that is not always the case. But at the same time, do they get the same quality of care that we do? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's also, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it affects our overall ability to maintain competition, right? So the cost of a broken arm and getting it reset could be, thousands of dollars, and it has the ability to fluctuate. When is it that we can begin to really cap that? And is this bill working towards that? I'm sorry, there was about 3 or 4 questions in there. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So let me start from the beginning. I don't disagree with you, especially when it comes to consumer health. Like, I'll give you an example. I went into anaphylactic shock earlier this year.
Oh,
so I can't even get my allergy shots anymore. But my insurance company won't approve this other Dupixent shot that I need for polyps and my nasal issues, right? So I see that. But what this bill does is it's only looking at one side of the healthcare benchmark with the hospitals. It's not touching the insurers. It's not touching the pharmacy benefit managers. And everything that you just said, there's layers to that. When the Medicaid reimbursement rate is different, when Medicare reimbursement rate is different, when the pharmacies and pharmacy benefit managers can charge at a certain rate to a hospital versus their own pharmacy, for instance, where if you get a medication in a hospital, it's up to a certain dollar amount, much higher than if you were to get it at a pharmacy. And again, like a broken arm is a very specific situation versus something else. So my point is this: I totally agree with you. I think we need to do different things. I think there needs to be transparent pricing legislation. Honestly, another thing we could look at is the certificate of need and removing that from the state to create competition. I've specifically been involved in a situation before where I saw back doctors trying to create a 23-hour surgery center, and they could not get the certificate of need. Why? Because there was another board that deals with that certificate of need that had it, locked in for the hospitals, and they say no, right? And that doesn't promote competition. It's only promoting the hospitals. I agree that something has to happen. I think everybody agrees with that. Yeah. I disagree with the timing of the bill. I disagree with the thoughtfulness of the bill. It was pushed. If you look at the details of the bill, it was not well thought out. It was modeled after another state of Vermont, which is not going well, which has increased the cost of this, and it's seen nonprofit hospitals close. So to me, if you're going to do it, let's do it, but let's look at all sides of the benchmark. And while you're looking at that, all sides of the benchmark, and being thoughtful of that, let's remove the certificate of need, and let's use our political will to maybe look at a different hospital system. You could even look at hospital systems being broken up into different businesses, and you could look at trying to go get another major insurer to the state. Those are some tangible things. But I agree with the transparent pricing. That's something we all talk about, because I have several friends that have gone through some procedures, and they went and shopped it around, one, to see what their own health insurance is going to cover or what they would have to pay for out of pocket. And there's certain places that'll charge different things. I do think removing certificate of need would absolutely help with that. And I think that's something that maybe hospitals wouldn't like, but they could get more on board with, to be honest with you.
And I think it goes back to originally what we were talking about as far as competition goes. Like you were speaking about your friends who would shop the price of a procedure. If we're getting to the point where, we daggone near near coupons in order to get a procedure done due to the cost, and everyone's insurance will cover this but won't cover that, and there's difference between each one. We have a problem. I have a question for you as a Republican centered, as a Republican representative. I find that you have been very level-headed and working across the aisle on several issues, and we enjoy talking to you because it's not you're very cognizant of both sides, okay? So in regards to communication with other representatives in regards to this bill, please tell us a little bit about what's going on the floor in regards to this. What is the conversation amongst others in the chamber in regards to this?
Yeah, well, I think that's the one of the biggest issues with this whole bill, Kerwin, that's kind of shed light maybe on what's happening in Dover when you don't have any balance. When we dealt with this bill in the House, we roughly had a 3-hour debate, and we still had more. I mean, I had 7 pages of questions. And the point, I have a lot of doctors, nurses. Obviously, we're all consumers of healthcare, right?
Right.
Biggest issues of consuming healthcare, and one of the problems here in America is we're all very reactive to our healthcare. We don't generally look at health and wellness. We look at acute care when we need it. And so that's a major problem for each of us as consumers. But on the floor, I had 7 pages of questions because I'm truly, I think one of the biggest things when we get here is that, to your point of working across the aisle, is to have understanding. If you don't have understanding and you can't know how the bill is going to be operationalized, because theory is one thing, but how it's operationalized is another thing. And if we can't have understanding on that, then what are we doing here? This is a place of business.
Right.
And so after 3 hours of debate, some obscure rule was used by 5 members on the other side of the aisle to force a vote without any more questions or debate. And I think that's a hard place to be. So when you're getting a bill forced fed down your throat and you can't have all of your questions answered, it's hard to get to a place where you feel like you can support something, right? I think that's a natural human reaction. And so it's been tough. I mean, look, I think the speaker is a very thoughtful person. I work well with her across the aisle. I do think this is something mainly from the governor's office and from others in the administration, and she's working it with other members of leadership, because I do think it comes from a good place of intent. I think we all
that was going to be my question, my next question. I too believe that this comes from a very good place, but absolutely. I think that we have to, I don't want to say slow it down, but we need to be more cognizant of everything. So I think we could get more from this bill if we all just kind of work together on it.
I agree. I mean, a couple things, right? Politically, you're doing it the last minute. And I even said on the floor, Kerr, I said, as everyone's token Republican here in the chamber, you would think you'd invite me to the table. That way, if we're thoughtful about it, and I know that, I can help you sell it too.
Right.
Because to your point, I'm not a very partisan person. My CPAC rating's a 50. I'm probably the closest thing to the middle this state has ever seen.
Right.
And I hang that with a badge of honor. I think that's where we need to be. I think
it's effective.
Yeah, and I think partisan politics, look, that's not what governing is, okay? And all that's doing is it's not showing solutions to our problems. It's showing ideology, and ideology has never solved a problem before, ever. And so I think we can get to a good place. I do think it's rushed. I think it has so many unintended consequences, to the point where I think, this week the Senate will deal with that through certain amendments. But one of my kind of line in the sand things is that we're going to put a politically appointed board, over top of one specific sector. Because I do think that sets bad precedent for our state. I'm not saying that I don't believe there should be oversight. I think there should be plenty of oversight. And I do think when you have specific boards of directors who have fiduciary responsibility, that's what their job is. On the floor, I used it as an example. If you remember former Cabinet Secretary Rita Landgraf.
Yes.
I think very highly of her, and she's across the aisle. She's a Democrat, but I also think she's a very thoughtful person who does everything for the right reason and just truly has a genuine heart to help people. And she's on the board of ChristianaCare. She's on the board of Highmark. My point is, we already have these people in place. So I don't think this bill costing more money to taxpayers is going to be the answer when it could shut down service.
Has those, so let me ask you a question in regards to the board's members. Have they been selected yet, or is it because the bill hasn't passed, therefore we haven't gotten to the selection committee? And through your conversations, has there been a criteria in regards to who they can select?
No, I think that's the biggest problem, Kerwin, and one of the biggest unanswered questions. No one has been chosen because the bill has to be signed before anyone doing that. I think that's a weird place to be, because if the bill doesn't get signed this year and it happens next year, it means a different governor who might have different thoughts about this is making a decision. So I don't know who the governor and his administration has in mind. I'm assuming they do have people in mind. I think that's one of the biggest things people need to worry about, because there are no criteria. It's up to the whim of that administration and signed off by the Senate. That's one of my biggest issues here in the state of Delaware, and in red states where people should worry too. When everyone has power of every chamber and the administration, there is no ability for questions. There is no ability for dialogue of professional pushback. And sometimes you need professional pushback, because that's how you get to a good place where not everybody's happy. And that's a good place to be. And so there is no criteria. Nothing's been set up. We have no names. And I worry about that, because I've been on task forces before where I've shown up on the very first day and I see someone the administration's put on there, and it's quite literally to make sure what we created the task force for does not happen.
Right. So, I mean, that's what I would want to push back to the governor. He was recently a guest on the show a few weeks ago announcing his current candidacy for the mayor of Wilmington. I want to ensure that I find that the people who are going to sit on this board, if the bill is successful, if the legislation is successful, I find that key, because I want to ensure that their methodologies in regards to this align with the overall goal of the legislation, and there is no conflict of interest. There is no, let's just be honest, some shady things going on there. The other thing that concerns me, there's two parts to my concern. The first part is, as I researched this via the web and kind of other conversations, all I'm seeing are people that are either present or former Christiana Care employees, are researchers or whatever, supporting the downfall of this legislation. What I'm not seeing is a lot of opposition from the public. I'm not seeing a lot of opposition from non-affiliated physicians and healthcare practitioners that are not affiliated with Christiana Care. It seems as though we talked about before, this is a one-shop stop in regards to Christiana Care is the only major healthcare provider in this state for our million citizens. So I think that I could understand it more if it wasn't in regards to just protecting the interest of this healthcare provider. Second part of the question, what I'm finding is that they are not talking about cutting physicians. They are not talking about the cause of this bill is going to make us shut down hospitals. They're saying the cause of this bill is going to make us shut down extracurricular programs, things that, the public relies on and benefits. It's almost, to me, sir, it seems like a scare tactic to get people to get behind their ideas of this legislation. It doesn't seem as though, it's so dire that, we're going to shut down hospitals and we're going to lose physicians. And that's not what I'm seeing. And if we're using scare tactics at this point in order to promote legislation, I think that that's an issue.
Yeah, no, so I don't disagree with that. I can't speak on their side of it. And look,
right.
As a guest on this show, I can tell you I'm no fan of Christiana Care. So right. I have no skin in the game in that regard. I only care about people getting help, having access to good health care, and lowering costs. The fact of the matter is this bill is not going to lower costs, and it's not to give us better quality. And yes, you are right. I do think Christiana Care employees or retirees of Christiana Care have been the most prevalent. I think that's the point, though, of how I started the show, is I want people in the general public to better understand it. I think you've seen the business community. The one thing I've seen is the business community rally together around this bill due to the precedent of it. I wish they would rally together on a lot of other bills, but yet here we are. But I don't disagree that maybe it could be a scare tactic, but when you look at a nonprofit hospital, the margins are what they are anyway.
Yeah.
Me personally, Do I like that I see them growing out of state versus Delaware? No, because we're going to get that overhead, and that's a part of the economics and economies of scale of things. But at the true end of the day, I think like everybody kind of stands by the fact that like if you want to do things and you say competition is your biggest thing, then there's no way this is going to help facilitate the change of cost because of competition. It's not going to drive competition. It's going to put a board oversight that's saying, well, instead of like community health resources from the hospital, it's going to go into what? The general fund of the state. And politicians know how to use community health resources better when they don't even look at everybody else's budget. How does that work? I'll also add, if you think the state should have oversight, the state hasn't even hit its own benchmark over the last 6 years.
Right.
So how are we going to put people over top of it when we can't even do it ourselves? That's a little disingenuous. So trust me, I'm no fan of Christiana Hospital. And to me, I'll be honest with you, I think our hospital systems have almost become the third political party in our state. I'll be blunt enough to say that. But at the same time, they're not the political party of the Republicans, I can tell you that.
Right.
And I don't care to be a Republican or a Democrat on this issue. I just care that like this is legislation that's being forced down our throat that has not been well thought out. It's ill-timed, and we haven't had voices at the table to craft something that's great. If you want good intention to truly help all people, you would bring all people to the table and we'll solve the problem together. And that's just where I'm at.
I love it. Representative Mike Smith, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. You're always that non-biased opinion, and we enjoy getting your perspective. We hope to see you sooner than later right back here on the agenda. We appreciate all of you that viewed this week, and we look forward to seeing
let me know, guys. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. And we look forward to seeing you right here next week on the agenda.